All right, Noah. So this is a just a brief reply to your questions about staccato. I'm not going through like the whole methodical process of developing it and all that, but specifically just talking about the issues you were talking about. First of all, with the angle of the violin, if you are with your proportions, you need to hold it more to the side. Unfortunately, I think Roseanne, who I think is one of the greatest technicians I've ever met. Probably the greatest in terms of like natural technique, like no tension kind of technique, which is, for me is like living proof is how old he can get, and still play so well. But if you have, thinner shoulders and longer arms, then your bow will be more out like this, right? I'm just trying to show an extreme example. And in order to compensate for that, your violin has to go more to the side. I'm exaggerating, so it probably doesn't have to go to the side that much. But from, let's say, a very in position, which is very Roseanne, right? You might have to go farther out in order to compensate for your long arms. And now that's the overall posture. However, if you're very comfortable in tucking your hand in at the frog, right? So tucking, I'm going to exaggerate to show an example, right? Which is kind of half of the figure eight bowing, right? So the figure eight bowing is, tuck it in at the frog and then push out at the tip so that you get this figure eight kind of thing, right? If you're very good and comfortable with that, I think I found out that you can do less of you can, even if you have long arms and narrow shoulders, you can get away with less holding of the violin to the side. But in general, if you're comparing yourself to violinists like, let's say, Yehudi Menuhin, or I don't know who else is around you, if your friends are shorter arms but thicker upper body, then you are definitely going to hold the violin a little more to the side, but still within your embrace. Always shoulders down, so that you're kind of like, in a way, a good exercise in the gym. Like the rows, where you're not supposed to row like this, right? Where you're supposed to do the, I don't know what you call them. I think they're lateral rows, seated rows, maybe. Yeah, but you're supposed to, when you do them, you're supposed to forcibly bring your shoulders down. Feel the flex right here, right in the delts. See my delts right here. Feel the flex right there, and then pull like this, okay? Instead of keeping it up. And so keeping the shoulders down, okay, is very important, and exercises like that might actually help in maintaining the physical integrity of your body. But in any case, keep the shoulders down, but keep the shoulders slightly in, like you're hugging somebody. And within that embrace, you can, with your proportions, you might want to keep the violin a little more to the side. Okay, that's the first thing. The number two thing I think is very important is you talk about the level of your your upper arm. I think the reason why you have to keep it high or flat or whatever is more important. Thinking that it should be flat, I think, is very dangerous, because, as you pointed out, you have different proportions from me, from like Christina, right? I mean, it's so different, right? So if we say flat, that's like completely ignoring the fact that you have a different body ratio. The key reason for saying something like that is that it has more to do with feeling. So is that the hand, the wrist, the smaller part, this part of your whole arm limb combo here, should never feel like it is being held up by itself. So if you go like this, extreme example, angle is restricting, but also it feels like the whole arm is dropping down, and the hand and the fingers and all the small muscles are doing the motion itself, but also is trying to hold up the bow by itself. The reason for saying, keep it up, blah blah blah, is because at a certain point, and it doesn't even have to be flat. Sometimes you can find this angle when it's lower too. There's a point where you kind of feel like you're actually holding up the hand and the bow with your upper arm. So you're, if you're doing extreme example, I guess this would be it, where like you feel like, wow, my upper arm is really holding everything together, right? But there's an angle. You can start from lower, and then at some point, even though it's not flat or high, there's a point where you feel like, oh, my upper arm is holding it up, and that it should be the foundational basis, okay? Because you don't want the hand to be holding up everything. You want the arm to be holding it up, and then the hand and all the small muscles free to do what it needs to do, hanging from the stronger, bigger upper arm. Okay, so that's the feeling that you need to find. And for me, okay, and I guess my shoulders are not that narrow. I'm not that broad either. But my arms are kind of on the long side. And for me, I start feeling that, like below the flat point, like right around here. I already feel like, even though visually it looks like my upper arm is lower, I can feel it supporting and holding up my hand. And so at that point, that's good enough. That's the whole point of having it flat and higher, depending on the arm. Man, that feels restricting, even though it's holding up the hand, because this part gets jammed. So finding that point, that feeling, starting from too low, and then find that, I think is very critical. Yes, I think that's all that you were talking about. So those two things, the angle, and then in terms of the fingerboard, don't feel too bad about going to the fingerboard unless you're always there, even with long bows. Then you might have a just overall bowing setup issue. Just try practicing. I mean, it's more of a mental exercise. Let's try drawing away from the fingerboard, and your bow will probably be turned anyways. So if you go too close to the bridge, the strings are too strong. Normal spiccato won't even work there, because spiccato is a more gentle stroke, right? It's not a slammy stroke. So the strings are too tight here, and you do need to be closer to the fingerboard. So unless you're living there all the time with all your strokes, or you're letting orchestra let you get sloppy. That's the other thing. If that's the thing, then you can refer to my other long video. But anyways, that should cover some of the ideas you threw at me about spiccato, and let me know how the angle search goes, because that is really important. Because there really should not be one, like, 90 degrees, no, absolutely not. The key is, again, I'll repeat myself one last time, is that it should feel like this is holding up and supporting this part of your limb combo, so that you are free to do what you need to do. And for me, this is about the right angle, okay, or the right height for A string, and then it gets a little higher for D string and all. Okay, bye.